Hello, welcome to Inspired Caring. I'm your host, Michelle Magner. If you are caring for an older family member, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I bring insight, tips, inspiration, and strategies to help you care for the people that you love without losing yourself along the way. Having cared for both of my grandmothers, I've helped manage everything from hospital stays, households full of belongings, to navigating senior living and end-of-life care. And I've worked in senior living as a result of that experience, serving my residents and their families as they've been on this journey too. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Inspired Caring. Well, welcome, Heather and Jonie.
Hello. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. We are going to talk about houses and real estate and stuff.
Okay.
And like how to manage this stuff and what you do and how you help families. So why don't you share a little bit individually about your backgrounds and how your business came to be? Heather, we can start with you.
Very good. Well, I have a varied background and lots of variations, but I do have a home care background where I worked with seniors and children in group home settings, as well as in a corporate environment to help seniors stay at home. Mm-hmm. But I grew up very tight with my grandparents and the seniors around us. And so I've always had a passion for older generations. And we were working in real estate and realized that there was a need to help folks transition from a big old house with lots of stuff to a home that better fits them.
That's perfect. And you're currently also helping out with your grandma. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So you kind of wear multiple hats. You have this professional hat, the real estate agent hat, and then also a caregiver role.
That is correct. Yeah. And my husband and I are both only children. So between the two of us, we support quite a few seniors. So
quite a few people. Awesome. Well, thank you.
But I love it.
Yes.
Jonie?
I've been in real estate, started on the relocation side of it back in 2001. So my start in real estate actually was moving executives for their employers across the country. And then just kind of as, life changes and reasons change and your whys change, got into selling real estate solely, walked away from the management, the corporate side of it. And then just going through my own personal things with my grandmother and then most recently my mother, just kind of moving her from her house of 40 years and getting into a different space that is safer for her for the time being. And it was just a good choice for that. But yeah, it was the overwhelming process of she had so many things in a house of 40 years. That it was overwhelming. And with her dementia, it was not conducive to her being part of that process, which sounds really sad. So kind of jumping in and trying to figure out like, what does she want to keep? What would she want to get rid of? And that, and pretty much felt like I lost close to a year.
Yes.
In that process. But then that, with Heather and her family dynamics and with mine and real estate and her group settings and my relocation backgrounds, like there's got to be a way that the high touch service that I did for executives, our seniors deserve every bit of that. How do we tailor a program to help them and their families make these transitions so they're not so jarring?
Right.
I mean, the emotional turmoil that everybody goes through. And I think everybody goes through it feeling like we just made a lot of mistakes because you're in the midst of the emotion of it and not sure what the right answers are. And so you just kind of take your best guess at it. So that's why we started Family Ties, was just to try to help people lay out a plan, feel like you have a little more control over it, and an advocate.
And also to protect seniors.
Mhm.
I've had several people, so we got our senior real estate specialist designation last September.
Mhm.
Both of us did, and that transpired really fluidly to family ties and helping the move management portion. But I've had so many folks reach out with asking for assistance and after the fact of working with different vendors, whatever may have been, or, you know, but their family members aren't looking out for seniors or the neighbors or whomever. And it was one of those that we had a conversation that there was a need on to help families with each portion and to plan, but also to keep the senior and their families from getting scammed, which are, you know, seniors are so hit so hard by the bad guys. So by being that conduit and by being that point person for families, to know that they can trust us to keep the senior and their stuff, you know, safe and out of harm's way.
Right.
So we're going to hit on a lot of areas that you just brought up, because they are all, I think, really equally important. But let's start with the scam, just to check that box immediately, because you brought this up in a recent conversation we had. So what would that look like to scam a senior out of their real estate property?
Well, I think it's taking advantage of seniors who maybe don't understand housing prices, the housing market in 2022. You know, a lot of these seniors may last bought their house in 1970. I mean, we're just throwing a number out there. Where right now we pay 3 times as much for a car as they ever paid for their house. So they're not really understanding the value of their home, or they very much feel like, well, there's too much repairs. I didn't take care of enough, and I don't have the energy for it. I don't have the money to fix things up. So,
well, and if you're telling me you can give me cash and I can just walk away, I mean, they just don't ask questions. I think they're too easily to trust people and not ask those important questions of what exactly is going on.
Yeah. So a cash offer is not necessarily the best. And really it's because you're not understanding the value of your home. And
right.
Yeah.
Well, and anymore too, like our market is so robust that very well qualified buyers who will pay a premium for your house in as is condition, they will compete for your property. And whereas if you get a letter in the mail or a postcard, they may, go off of assessor's value or a fraction of assessor's value, when in reality, your market value could be substantially more, and buyers will bid to get the best. We frown on capitalism somewhat sometimes.
Right.
When it's the sellers and it's them getting the best price that they possibly can, best offer on their house, they will win when the buyers are exposed to the property and know that they're going to have to bid it against other buyers. Somebody sending you a letter and tugging on your heartstrings about, I want to live in your neighborhood. Well, that's the letter that goes out. Right. They're not going to live in your neighborhood. They want an investment property and they want to take advantage of you to do that. We even had a recent lunch and learn at another facility, and a gentleman had received this exact letter with the photo on it, and we explained to him how, this was actually not someone looking to live in the neighborhood.
It wasn't handwritten.
It wasn't handwritten like you thought.
It
looks like it's handwritten, but it's not.
It's all over the city.
And he was heartbroken. He's like, so these people, because he wanted to get good neighbors.
He was worried about his neighbors.
He was. I mean, it's such a sweet man.
I think they've lived there 50 years.
Yeah. And he's like, if I leave the house, I want to leave my neighbors with somebody great.
Right.
And he's like, these people looked great. And like, well, and he literally walked away kind of like disappointed or ashamed, like
a little heartbroken.
He was like, he wanted that letter to be true.
Right.
And it wasn't. And, some of those letters come out and they're targeting people who have lived in their houses for a long period of time, people who probably don't have mortgages on their properties.
Okay.
And so if you get the letter, like we said, give it to someone that you trust and talk it over.
Right.
Call a trusted real estate professional, call somebody you can talk to and just be like, is this like legit?
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Yeah. And I think this
Question everything.
question everything. And I love that just in general with
Right.
life philosophy.
Question authority.
Right. A little bit.
Question everything.
But so this is really important. If you are the family care provider for an aging adult, just to keep this in mind that they are receiving pieces in the mail like this, postcards in the mail like this, and maybe receiving phone calls. They may be seeing signs as they're driving around the city, you know, cash offer, we buy houses. And so to just have that conversation with your family members so that they are alert and aware that this is not the way to go.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So important.
Some people think like there's even one of the, well, several of them, they say, just, you know, you can leave your house as is, contents included. And to some people, it's like, well, I don't have to worry about cleaning my house out. I can just take the few things that I want and just leave the rest of it. And sometimes too, for family members, they just don't have the time.
Right.
They're like, so this kind of seems to fit a bill for many things. And that's too why Family Tie is like, okay, so actually let us help you determine what you want to dispose of or sell or gift to family members. Let us kind of go through that process so you're not selling yourself short, selling, you know, shortchanging your senior.
Right.
Well, and you just never know. I mean, what if there's something really great that you never knew was in those belongings? Or I just think so easily everyone's so busy with everything that it's just easier to say, oh, cash offer, I'll walk away, when, you know, you give a little bit of time and effort and it's really worth it.
Well, and you learn a lot of stories.
Yes.
You go through things and you see like Christmas cards or photos, or you see handwritten letters or yearbooks. I mean, the yearbooks that I found too. And it's like, oh my gosh, like it does help connect us to, sometimes we lose the human side when you're in the turmoil.
Right.
There's a life here. There was years spent and there's memories that have been collected, and to try and pay homage to those, respect those things. Because too, like I also found like my kids very much liked the stories of, I never knew that about grandma, or I never knew this, or great grandma did what? And it's like, oh, but it was going through the process of things that you remember the stories, or you learn the stories. So if you have the time, or we can help you. Kind of makes sense too, out of what really isn't the important stuff, and then what is the important stuff, and knowing we can help guide you through that too. Right.
Well, and it's really hard when because I have inherited, my husband and I have inherited 3 full households of a lifetime of belongings. And so
where do you start?
And it can be really hard. I remember my grandma would walk me around the house and say, this is valuable. This is valuable. You know, these collector plates, I paid $75 a piece. They're going to appreciate and be worth $225 a piece. And we remember how much we paid for things. We remember we have a lot of meaning assigned to those items. And then we try and you have to have a buyer for something to be of value. But so to have professionals like you with Family Ties come in and say, actually, at this point, you know, these are the items.
Right. And nobody wants those Beanie Babies.
Nobody's wanting the Beanie Babies, or like the VHS tapes was something my father-in-law just really wanted them to go to somebody who would find them of value. I mean, and the love and intent that collection was curated was for their grandkids. And so they feel so valuable. But then we know that you may not be able to get money for them. So I guess just circling around your point of, it's hard to know in a household of a lifetime of belongings what has value at this point and where there's a buyer and not.
So having that third party, I think, is really helpful too. Someone who's objective as far as that is worth something, or no, it's not
Or
worth
even
something.
like, let's question it.
Right.
Well, that actually might be something, so maybe set that aside.
Mhm.
And then we can do the due diligence on, well, who would be a good person to talk to about the value of these items, so that you can have additional information. It's not just a fire sale
Exactly.
or set it on fire. I mean,
Right.
I just want it all on fire. Yeah,
Right.
no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And that goes like plays well into the emotions that's involved, and then the family drama that always ensues, because everybody has a different perspective and everybody has a different idea of what should stay or go and everything else. And I think, again, by having us come in and able to kind of mitigate and play that middleman and cool some tempers and help folks transition, I think that's really helpful. Maybe it's
So important.
right.
No, I'm a firm believer, as often as possible, that we can get third party involvement. I think that it does help navigate the family dynamics and help, like you said, settle the tempers and give some perspective, because ultimately, really, we tend to want the same things.
Exactly.
We do have a baseline of, we want, whoever it is to be safe. We want them to be cared for. We want to be able to show up for them in a way that helps us feel connected.
Right.
And I mean, let's just face it, move it. Like if anybody listening to this just imagines moving under traditional normal circumstances, it is freaking chaos, and it is so stressful.
Right. No matter what age, no matter how
what age,
planned, no matter how many people you have involved, it's always stressful. It's always.
Well, it's the third most traumatic experience you can go through.
Yeah. What are the other two?
Death and divorce.
Yes.
Death, divorce, and moving. Those are your three big life events that, it can derail you. So.
Well, and even under the best, like you were talking about relocation, even when it is under your own desire, it's still, you're mourning a loss of a community that you've been part of, a neighborhood. Like you were talking about that gentleman who was so sad, he wanted to find good neighbors.
Right.
I mean, even if it's of your own design, there's still some loss associated with moving.
Well, it's closing a chapter, right? I mean,
I've had people take the trim work out of the kitchen doorway because their kids' heights were marked. Like, how do I take this? They go, well, yeah, you can take the trimmer, you got to replace it, make it so it looks like it's supposed to be. But like those attachments, like it's a piece of wood.
Right.
But knowing another family can come in and just paint over it, and it's like it would erase somehow your children's entire
existence,
adolescence.
Right.
But there's such strong attachment, and that's why houses are called homes. It's people and the memories, and especially when people have been in them as long. I've been in my house 17 years.
Yeah.
And I think about, like, I constantly clean it out, which my family says I'm a minimalist, and I probably have been. But even though I won't have a lot of stuff to get rid of, the trauma of, I moved into the house when I was 29. I was pregnant with my second kid. I went through, life, and it's very emotional. So even in the best of circumstances, there's emotion to it.
Yeah. What about, you tell me more about the senior designation or the certification that you said that you have?
The senior real estate.
Yeah, the senior real estate.
Well, that we went through a course and got certified specifically with seniors in mind.
55 plus.
Yep. Okay. Everything from, how maybe a baby boomer thinks to now considering a Generation Xer.
Okay.
And how we work and how we process information. It was actually really good because you just think like everyone thinks like you do. Right. And people don't feel that way or think that way. But it went from emotions, communication skills, goals. We have a very vibrant senior community, by and large, more so than we did 30 years ago. People do want simpler living and travel and independence.
When people are they're living longer. I mean,
Right.
it's as the boomer generation, ages, they're living longer, they're staying active, they're staying in their homes, but they might want to sell, but they don't necessarily want to go to a retirement home or a facility. They just want to downsize to a little condo that they don't have to worry about the snow and the lawn and everything else. And just how to work with seniors to a point with communication. They require a little bit more face-to-face and phone calls compared to millennials who just want to text you.
Yeah.
Also the two went into different cultural things,
Right.
like how different cultures treat seniors, which also has been a big reason for a boom in multi-family homes. Because you used to always think like, oh, you're in your house until you retire and move on. And I was like, well, maybe it makes sense to bring mom here.
Right.
Maybe it makes sense to maybe have her live with us full time or for the summers or during the school year. So there's a lot of different dynamics that even if they don't pertain to like my family, it was eye-opening to how other cultures want to care for their seniors. So there was some stuff on like reverse mortgages, pluses and minuses on that. Savings patterns was also something else too, is how things that seniors think about at different stages, whether it is protecting assets or inheritance taxes or capital gains is a huge thing. Why a lot of people don't want to sell, they're like, oh, I'm going to have to pay a huge tax penalty. We're not tax advisors. I always have to do that disclosure. But it's, it's things that a 20-year-old isn't going to necessarily comprehend because they're not in that. You learn as you grow older.
Right.
And I think right now too, so we're in the sandwich generation where we're taking care of kids and we're taking care of our adults.
Right.
And maybe we didn't really necessarily think about, like, oh, this capital gains, is this big of an issue? Well, yeah, when you start accumulating wealth and you need to know if it's protected and things like that. So it was eye-opening for so many feelings and financials and cultures. And it's like, wow, I didn't think about that. So
right. So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of empathy building and awareness and education on the different generations. And I mean, you just said even moving out of your home right now would be very emotional because you have been there and you have grown memories there. And so now imagine it from the perspective of the senior adult, your parents and grandparents, and they have doubled the time that they've potentially been in that property. And it's so critical to understand that we do have different lenses that we see the world based on all of our circumstances and experiences and privileges, and so important. That sounds like a really important designation when you're considering an agent, if this is what you're looking at doing next.
Right. Yeah. It was a good fit for us, and I think it really positioned us for the steps to follow. It's just, I love how life works.
Yeah.
We both have channeled a lot of our own experiences through this, and I'm just happy to be a part of it, and happy to help others to not feel so alone not to be so overwhelmed, and to also keep aging adults from getting themselves just getting into falling for all the bad guys.
Right. Yeah. Who are out there and on the hunt. I mean, it seems like the best example. You're living what you're working, what you're living, it's like where art imitates life almost, with helping your family members.
Right.
As they're doing this stuff too. I can imagine when you walk into a home, because I don't know how the real estate market has evolved with staging and things like that. But I imagine that you walk into homes and the accumulation that you're seeing is pretty impressive. So that's where that family ties piece of that business can support a family.
Right. Right. Well, and really like going through it individually, we didn't set out even a year ago. We we should make a business out of this. We should
Right.
do, it was kind of like, it was more born out of, how do we get through this?
It was very organic.
How am I going to get through this? How do I, and I say the analogy a lot, like you feel like you're alone on an island.
Yes.
You feel like it's a badge of honor. Like, I'm
Suffering through.
I'm going to make it through this, and I carry it on my back. Like it's a proof of strength to bear the wounds and then be like, okay, you made it out. But even when you make it out, you look back and you're like, how much time was spent?
Right.
How many tears did I shed? I mean, you feel so alone. There's like, and that's really what started her and I, because she was going through her stuff. And I was like, how do we do this so like people don't have to feel so alone, helpless, and in the dark?
Right.
Because you can make choices that you think at that time, they're really great choices because it's the information you have. Like, okay, yes.
Right.
And then you're like, well, wait a minute, I didn't even consider this over here. So it's eye-opening to kind of go through that and be like, so, but how do we help others?
Right.
Well, I think that's a big
Not
part
do
of
this.
it. Big part of it too is we did have each other as sounding boards throughout a lot of it. And what do people do when they really don't have anyone else to ask questions, or even like, do you think this is a good idea? Or do you think this is a good idea? And not to say that we have those answers, but I think just having someone to call and have those conversations with means a lot when you're in the thick of it.
Right.
Well, and oftentimes family members aren't in town with the person
That's a whole nother,
that they're trying to move. I mean, in my situation with my grandparents, I lived in Kansas City, and my dad and my mom lived out of town. So I was the one at least able to
do the designated, right?
Right. Able to do it. And this podcast has a global audience. So I know that there are just people that are struggling because their parent lives so far away.
Right.
But I think it's just important for them to remember that there are resources available,
right?
Who are like you and have a similar mindset and want to be supportive and helpful in a important way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of too, like how we've reached out when we met with you at the networking event, trying to find those like-minded people. Because even though we have a network of vendors, it's like, our first question is, but would you trust them?
Right.
No. Okay, we got to go find the people that we would trust.
Right.
To help out your grandma.
Right.
To help out with my mom. Like, who are those people? And that's our network.
Right.
So it's
and just like every industry, there's personality differences and ethical differences, and just the way people do business is so varied that it's something that we feel very strongly to partner with people who have all of the same, gut instincts and
patience and
right, empathy. And I think just being through the transition, being through the stuff, I think that it gives you a different perspective than some folks that may not have that experience.
So if I was out of town and I'm trying to sort this all out, I'm just thinking maybe starting with when I'm looking for an agent specifically, that senior designation,
right,
would be a good first step to see if that is something that they've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and one of the things, like when we refer outside of the Omaha area, because we will do that for clients and friends and family, it's like, hey, I'm moving to, or I need to sell a house in San Francisco, wherever.
Right.
I was like, let me make some calls. So I start, and you will do the same thing. The first thing we want to do is we want to vet them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I want to talk to you. I want to ask you some questions because I want to see how you respond to them. And if it's not the right fit, they'll never get the client's name. Like, okay, yeah, I'll let them know. This is not going to be a right fit for you. So I would say too, even if someone is out of town and they have questions, know that, we can help vet those people too. Movers, decluttering folks, like estate sale people. If there's something we can do just to start asking some questions.
Right.
like, okay, I would be comfortable working or at least meeting with this person.
Right.
Here's some questions I would ask this person if you're comfortable with it. And that's because sometimes too, I mean, we don't want to downgrade our designation. I think people feel it sometimes is an easy way to maybe get sellers in this market. And it's not true because it depends on, it's like everything, right? You go through the process and do you take it to heart or do you pass the test?
Or do you just add those
Right.
letters behind your name? And
Right.
So we want to make sure like the people that are going to work with our folks and others and loved ones, that the people who took it to heart.
That's awesome. That's very generous of you, because I'm sure that can take a little bit of time.
It does, but
you got to trust your gut though. And
Yeah.
I would never want, I just always think of my grandma. I mean, she'll be 100 years old in August and she's still a little spitfire, but would I trust this person with my grandma? Would I, trust this person to move her across the country or whatever?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I absolutely fall back on that. So
I think that's a really important takeaway for people with anything that they're trying to do when they're helping their aging family member. It's just, what is your gut telling you?
right.
What is your instinct telling you?
And I think society has lost that so much because of all the technology and flashing things that, always trust your gut.
It's so good.
And those are things you won't really get like on a Google review or Yelp.
Right.
I'm
or even a
old school.
website.
I need to have a conversation.
Right.
I would love for it to be in person, but you can get a lot over the phone too, by how someone answers their phone or, their mannerism, the time they take for you too.
Right.
We want people to take the time. So, because even though we'll go through it, this is maybe the first time this family's gone through it. Right. And they are reaching out, they trust you for help. So you don't want to rush them through that process because then you're not servicing them the best possible way you can. So
that is such a good point. Like you are doing this all the time. And so it's, status quo for you, but for us, these are massive decisions and emotions are involved and it's very new. And so to have someone that you feel like you can trust to walk you through it is just so important.
Well, and someone to also say like, you're not the only one going through this and it's going to be okay. And your feelings are valid and it'll be okay. And we'll get through it together. And I think that's the reassurance, the little cheerleader, is often shrugged off or, people try to be too tough for it. But I think everyone needs a little bit of love when it comes to something as major as moving a loved one or even just giving up that portion of your life.
Yeah, closing that chapter and moving to the next one.
Exactly.
So if someone calls you to say, I have a house full of stuff and I have no idea what to do with it, like, what is your process? Like, how are you going in to help them with that?
So we'll meet with them, do a consultation and ask questions about goals, timing. Good. Sometimes people are planning out for a long period of time. Like, this is not something I'm going to do today.
Right.
But maybe in 10 years I'll do it. Or me with the family be like, so we're already 3 months behind the 8 ball on this one. We're trying to take into account their goals, the timing, what the senior really wants to have happen. And then who is authorized to speak and sign and do things, the proper protocol for who is really authorized to make decisions in the event that our senior is no longer there, able to make decisions, or health reasons are not able to do that. So we try to be pretty proactive up front, and then those are the things we keep in mind. So when emotions can derail things or family conflict can set us aside, it's like, okay, but remember when we first met, we wanted X, Y, and Z to happen. So kind of always bringing it back to this is the goal. Because their timing is theirs. We're not going to rush them through that in any way, but it's also life happens. And sometimes our goals can get muddied up with other things happening. So our process is just learning from the get-go.
Asking questions.
What is it we want to have happen and with whom, and if we can meet with all the decision makers in person, on the phone, we just want everybody to try and be on the same page going forward and feel like they're part of the process.
That's brilliant.
And adjusting accordingly, because nothing is
Pivot.
ever,
Right.
nothing goes as planned.
Stuff comes up, and yeah. So let's say we're all on the same page. We've signed the paperwork. Are you actually telling me that I can have a house full of stuff and you will help me empty it?
Yes.
Yes.
You're blowing my mind. Okay.
Yeah. We work with a fantastic lady who helps organize things. One of her big things too is like put things out on a flat surface and just kind of try to conquer tasks by task. So if we're going to clean out the corner of this room one day, or this room, or this floor, or whatever, that's our goal for the day.
And you're doing that, not me. I don't have to do that.
No. If you want to be part of that process, to be like,
Right.
These are things we want to keep. These are things that are going to go to my sister's house.
Yeah.
You can be as involved as you want to be,
or as hands
off. It's just a matter of,
yeah.
Key decisions like, okay, you're good with X, we'll confirm certain things too, but yeah, you don't, it's up to you as to how involved you want to be.
Okay. So as a note to viewers and listeners, I encourage you alone without these lovely women there are taking passes through the house and peeling out what you want. And then you walk away and let them come in and do their jobs, because having done this 3 times, you following people around and hesitating and questioning as soon as they pick something up to box it or get rid of it is going to slow the process down tremendously.
Right.
So that's just my plug, Michelle Magner saying, I encourage you. They are obviously gracious and saying, however you want this to take form, they are happy to work with you. My recommendation to you is take the time you need to go through, peel out what you want, each room, drawer by drawer, all the things, and then literally just turn on your heels, go get a Starbucks, go have a drink, and let them come in and do their job, because you have all of this attachment to the stuff and the stories behind it. And I think there is space that it's so important to have those conversations and share that information. But there is just a time when it's just time to get her done.
Right.
Well, and also too, I think we talked at the meeting about how you've taken things from the houses. And now do you have a collection of things in your house that you're like, you didn't quite deal with it, then it's accumulating, so your house filling up. And it's like,
So me personally, because me personally, I fancy myself a little bit of a minimalist. Everything that we have brought to our home from the other houses has been integrated. Like, it has found a spot. We have very, very few things that are sitting on a shelf or in a box. Because to your point, just storing stuff at your house that was once stored at that house,
right.
Just thinking through, is that going to serve you in the long run? I mean, we have the film, whatever, the reel-to-reel films of 2 generations ago.
Oh, wow.
And so, are we going to engage with the service to put that on DVD or not? We're sorting through some decisions on that. But point is once it's gone though. You know what I mean? Like, I highly encourage people not to get a storage unit and think, well, we'll just pull everything out and sort it, deal with it later.
Right.
Having moved a storage unit 3 different times.
Oh gosh.
There's very little you end up ultimately taking out of that storage unit.
Right.
So.
And that's common, I think.
Yes.
Human nature to hold on to things and think that you're going to either use them again or use them to some purpose, higher purpose.
Well, and you think like, I will have more time to look at this later.
Right.
And then you realize, so 20 years has gone. I still haven't looked in that box.
Right.
And now my kids have to look in the box. What the heck is in the box?
Yeah.
There's nothing in the box.
It's got to be a valuable box. It's been following me around for 20 years. It's like, that was in the box.
Right.
Right.
So
Oh, wait,
you always
it
think there's
was
more time later. And the reality is that we should be having more fun. When you
such a
can
good
get
point.
through it, then it's time to process it and then time to live your life. Enjoy the things that are important, enjoy the people that are important, get through and get rid of stuff you don't need so you can make the most of it, of
Absolutely.
everything else.
Yep. Good point.
I think that's a beautiful way to end, wrap it up. Do you have anything else that you feel, I mean, that is such wisdom that you dropped right there. I just,
Sometimes I surprise myself.
any other like final thoughts? I mean, I think that is the key, is this whole process can just feel so much easier if you start right now chipping away at it, going through it, getting rid of stuff so that you can spend the time doing what you love to do with the people that you want to do it with.
Absolutely. It's just processing,
Right.
processing things and
And
emotions.
letting go of some control. I think that's
Mhm.
that's part of it too.
Control does not equal love.
That's right.
Ooh, control does not equal love, and worry does not equal planning. Like just
Right.
because we're worried about something and trying to control it
Right.
does not equate to having a plan and
No.
being in a place of love.
No.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that
thank
is,
you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for the
much for
opportunity.
having us.
yes, thank you so much. In the show notes, we will drop in all the ways that people can reach you.
Sounds
Very
great.
good.
I appreciate it. So
Thanks
do.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a wonderful day.